What does this mean for you? So opting out does not affect any current existing exemptions within the city or Walton County. So the senior citizen exemption, which exempts 65 or over as of January 1st, that exemption, which exempts your house and up to 1 acre, remain exempt from school tax. And the statewide homestead exemption also continues. So this information was provided by our Walton County tax assessor, and this is a 3-year look back, and it would be the projected loss for our school system over the last 3 years if HB 581 had been in place for those 3 years. And so you'll see, and he used a 3% for CPI, and it's actually probably about 2%. This is one of the things the legislators haven't really decided what number they're going to use. So it could be more significant than this, but it is currently about $991,000 that our school system would have faced. So the consequences of a $1 million loss could be reduction in staff, increase in staff, class sizes, and fewer course options for our students. Why should Social Circle opt out?
So the reasons that we believe that we need to opt out have to do around the idea about the millage rate. So the millage rate is determined each year on an annual basis by our school board members. And our school board members respond to the recommendation that I make with help from Nicole Cross. And our board members have made it really clear that it's very important for us to roll back or reduce our millage rate as often as possible. So we work very diligently to make sure that we're fiscally responsible, that there's not fraud, waste, and abuse that's happening, but so that we can also make sure that we're designing the type of instructional experience that our community expects for their children in our schools. And so right now, our mill is 17.258, and we've continued to take that down over the last few years and would like to continue to be able to do that. However, if we're faced with not being able, if we're faced with losing $1 million, we will have to raise our mill rate, and we'll very quickly have to get the mill rate to the amount of 20 mills, which is the max mill rate. Even if we got to 20 mills, we still couldn't make up the $1 million difference for our budgets. So much of our budget has to do with HR. When we need to make cuts, we're going to make cuts in HR, especially if it's something along the lines of we need to get to $1 million. So one of the interesting things about this piece of this act, which is for some reason called Save Our Homes Act, is that we have this really odd opportunity to only opt out at one point in time, and if you don't do it at this one point in time, then boards forevermore are going to be held to this. So for us, while it looks like $1 million might not be a tremendous hit, we're not sure what that's going to look like 10 or 15 years down the road for our school district and for the budgets. So what we're asking for essentially is to have the opportunity for local control here at the schools to continue to be really sensitive to what our parents want for our students, and to make sure that our board members who you all have elected have the opportunity to have more control over our taxes than necessarily leaving that up to our state legislators. Again, we've always sought ways to lower the property tax. I can't say always, but certainly with this board and in our recent past, we've really worked to make sure that we've lowered that tax rate. One of the things that's important to note, some people think that we set home appraisal values and the school district doesn't have any control over how your homes are appraised. That's the tax assessor who sets that up. The average home price here in Social Circle is actually $350,000. And under House Bill 581, a homeowner would have realized a savings of about $100 in 2024 if House Bill 581 were in place. We want to be able to protect that hard-earned financial stability. We've worked hard to hear from our community members. We've worked hard to decrease the mill rate, and we'd like to be able to keep that authority here with the school board members that you've elected. One of the things that can happen, and sadly it has happened in the recent past for some of us who've been in education for a while, is that as the state budget, if they hit bumps in the road and their budget really decreases, the largest part of the state's budget is actually public education. So when they need to cut their budget, we're the first budget that they come after. And so we would really like the opportunity to be able to have this as one of the tools that we can use if we need to make up a deficit between what the state has agreed that they would give us versus what they actually give us. We are, in the past, when, for example, in 2008, 2009, school systems started to experience austerity cuts. So at the start of the school year, the state would communicate with you how much money they were going to give you, but then by the end of the year, they would give you less money. And that's one of the reasons that we have to do things like have reserves for school systems so that we can make sure that we can actually pay the commitments that we make with faculty members and then with the vendors that we use and the different facilities and resources that we use. And so if we know that those things happen, we've got to keep a really close eye on making sure that we do have a reserve. And if we don't have these opportunities to have local taxes and for that to be negatively impacted, then it's going to make it difficult for us to have the money that we need to be able to provide our services. So one of the things that we do anticipate will be happening in the social circle is that we're going to continue to grow. And we may have those unforeseen financial challenges like we experienced in 2008, 2009. And then Carrie's going to click here. One of the things that we've been working on over this last year is to spend a lot of time hearing from our families and hearing from our staff members and hearing from our students about what they want for our school system in our next 5-year strategic plan. We've met with all of our staff members, students at every academic level. We've met with parents. We've held evening events where families could come in and participate and give us feedback. We've actually done several rounds of surveys, and we have this website that's available out on our website, a link to this piece, where we've got the summaries of our strategic planning process, where there are links to the surveys, where there are opportunities for people to provide us feedback on the work that we've done so far towards the strategic plan. And the short version of this is, across all of those surveys, across all of our focus groups, no one has said we would like to have fewer teachers, we would like to have larger class sizes, we would like to have fewer elective options for our students. That has not come up once. And if we don't opt out of House Bill 581 and we're down $1 million in our budget because the majority of our budget is HR, we will have to get to the point where we're losing teachers and we are offering fewer options for our kids and having larger class sizes. And so those are the reasons that we believe and that we intend to make the recommendation that we opt out. We are going to have several sessions, several of our public hearing sessions that are going to occur in the next few weeks. There are 3 public hearing sessions that are required by the law, and we are having those on Thursday, January 16th, here at 6 p.m., on Thursday, February 6th, here at 5:30, on Thursday, February 13th, here at 6 p.m., and we would love for people to come and provide feedback to us. That will be an opportunity for people to come and provide feedback to the board about their position on House Bill 581. Does anybody have any questions?
What is the annual budget for the school system?
The annual budget for the school system, so for the general fund itself is about $26 million.
Okay.
Yes. And so about 20% of our general fund revenues come from local property taxes.
Well, the current budget was 51 million, but that includes the new school, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that includes all funds, so that would be our,
2024 was 31 million, right?
I'm sorry,
2024 was 31 million?
the general
Budget?
fund? Okay, I don't have the numbers right in front of me, so that was just,
Okay.
But yes, the
So-
original number in the 20s doesn't include the bonds for the new school.
yes, so
That's
that
a
would be
regular
probably the number
full
that
share
you're
budget.
thinking of, but yeah, that would include our capital projects fund, our special revenue funds, we get federal grants, those kinds of things, yes.
And we're making great progress out of the new elementary school. We're so looking forward to getting everyone out there. Yes,
Can
Mr.
you,
Bacon.
you mentioned the millage rate and the for a simple mind like myself, I look at this as preserving the millage rate to keep it down at 17 mil. Should the school system not opt out, what is your projected millage rate increase in order to make up potential shortfalls? Do you foresee having to get to that 20 mils in 2 years, 3 years, 4 years?
If we don't opt out, we will very quickly have to get to the 20 mils.
Okay.
And then at that point, we don't have another way to earn money other than either property values changing in the community or industries coming in. And so we would be in a real pinch and have to look at doing things like cutting human resource position.
What percentage of students right now are out of district that you don't have to provide for?
So about half of the students that come to our schools actually don't live within the city limits. And so one of the things that we make sure to communicate to our families is that if we didn't have people here from out of district, we wouldn't have a band. We could put all of the students on one school campus. There would be 1 or 2 teacher options at each grade level. We could fit everybody over on the middle school, high school campus. We wouldn't have as many athletic opportunities that we have. And our families have communicated that they don't want fewer options in those areas, that they'd like to have more options in those areas. We wouldn't have as many CTAE programs over at the high school.
I mean, I lived in, my oldest graduated in 2007.
Yes,
That's the school we went to.
yes,
So
Yeah.
I've seen the changes.
yes.
And
Can you-
I'm sorry, you go
No,
ahead.
you're good. Can you speak to the funding that allocates? So we understand that half of them come from out of district. How does that funding allocation work to our district from those intergovernmental agreements?
So with the intergovernmental agreements between Walton County for Zone 5, so for part of Walton County.
Well, I'm aware of how
Okay.
they pay us for their kids to come here and all of that.
Yes.
I'm just deciding like, so 50% of our students don't have to come here. Yes, we would lose, band would be smaller and that sort of thing. But I'm just like, if you get into a pinch, you could limit the volume of students you allow.
Correct. And we already do limit them. We don't accept all of the people who apply. So, and that's something that we really closely monitor. We watch to see about how many spaces where people have moved out, and then the number of students who've left from 12th grade, so that we're making sure that we're not growing too quickly. We were really surprised this particular year, and our largest growth actually happened within the city limits.
It probably will continue to.
And so what we can do, as we see that coming, is that we can just accept fewer students from Newton County and from Walton County. So
That's what I was asking, what the wiggle room is there.
Oh,
As we
yes.
watch subdivisions start.
yeah, it's like a spigot for us. So we want, for the team that considers the out-of-district applications, we look, and it's updated weekly. We've got a spreadsheet we keep a close eye out. We know how many students are in each grade level. We know how many homeroom teachers that we have for the different grade levels. So we know where we have space and where we don't have space. And so some years, no one who applies from outside is able to attend. And then other years would not have a smaller class, and so we have the opportunity to allow more folks to come in who meet our high academic, behavioral, and attendance requirements. Yes,
As
sir.
far as out-of-district students, what's the average cost to those families who are in Newton County to send their children to Social Circle? And could that increase potentially to offset any budget shortfall?
So there are families who pay a tuition. So the families who pay a tuition are not Newton families, and they're not the Zone 5 families, because we have the agreements with those governmental entities. And so a portion of their local tax dollars actually follow the student. So, but we do have to recalculate the out-of-district tuition fees. And Nicole, I don't want to misquote it.
So the out-of-district tuition fee is actually has to be calculated annually, and it's based on your current year's digest. There's a statewide calculation, and we do that every year at budget time. So yes, that does vary depending on our own millage rate.
So,
Digest, yes.
Dr. Bear, I just want to clarify. So
Yes.
we receive the state funding per child, irregardless of where they come from. They're funded the same way from the state.
Yes.
And our Zone 5 students and our Newton County students that we have an intergovernmental agreement with receive a local portion. It's just paid not from the city like normal. It comes from Walton County or Newton County.
Correct, and it comes to us per child.
Okay.
So for example, when you're living in the city and you're paying city taxes, we don't charge you per child that you have in school. But when we're working with those entities with intergovernmental agreements, if they come from one family, we get that same amount of money for all of the kids that come from that family instead of with the in-city taxes. That piece isn't an option. We don't bill you for each individual child. Yes?
Nicole, what was the tuition for the year, this year, 24, 25?
Let me go look it up. 'Cause I don't
It's
need the right number. There's a lot of numbers. there.
39.66.
Thank you, Carrie.
39.66.
Thank you.
So keep that in mind. Okay. So,
Yes,
yeah.
Please.
So understand, I've talked to a lot of people, of course, taxes is a huge thing for
Of course.
everybody. Everybody says our taxes are too high, okay? So whereas, and I saw where you had in there, where you said in 2024 what the tax difference would have been, but I'd be interested to see what that number was compared to like 2020. Because we all know the big jump in property taxes took place between 2020 and 2023 was the biggest jump. So that's been the biggest hit for taxpayers, and that's what this whole bill was designed to do, was to stabilize tax bill, in much the same way that the ad valorem tax on cars was changed to stabilize tax rates on ad valorem. So this is this attempt to do the same thing for housing, for existing people. When you buy a new house, it's gonna change, every time you sell your house, it's gonna change, so I get that. But, so if you look at the increase in the budget for the school from 2021 to 2024, taking the new school out of it, I mean, you jumped from 21 million to 31 million, so that's a pretty big increase. And property values increased more than that significantly over that same time period. So the school has gotten a significant amount of more revenue over that time frame. Okay? And there's nothing wrong with that. But also too, sometimes the best thing is not necessarily throwing more money at a problem. Maybe we need to figure out sometimes difficulty and financial struggle makes us better as a group too. Whereas taxpayers are really looking for relief. Somebody's saying, look, come on, we can't. I mean, I had people tell me they're moving because the taxes are way too high here. And we feel it. We pay a lot of property tax in the area as well, so we're not exempt to it. But I doubt that the HR has eaten up all of the increased revenue that's come from the increased revenue from taxes. So I'm saying, just keep in mind that there's more than one way to skin a cat. It doesn't necessarily mean that just $1 million maybe spending less, but coming up with a new strategy to use it better might be something that's needed.
We take that into account. We sincerely do. So we take every tax dollar and take it really seriously. Nicole, would you like to speak to where we've made improvements and changes in the way that we've handled the budget?
Yes, so I see the big jump, and, I see some of the HR things that have happened here are not all, attributed to $10 million for sure. But the state, they dictate a lot of what we are required to do. Over the last 3 years even, our health insurance per employee has gone from $945 a month to $1,700 a month. You've seen Governor Kemp raises, which are welcome, needed, necessary for our teachers. But you're talking, almost $8,000 to $10,000 depending on, some of these teaching positions. And that's, a hefty increase. Our general fund budget, 88% of it is HR. So the $10 million, most of it is HR.
We're a business as well, so we understand all of those things, and all of those individual families paying the taxes are also dealing with those same things.
Correct.
But we're asking them to give up more. And so that's what I'm just saying, that perhaps maybe we need to change the mindset just a little bit. Maybe, I understand the big push is to opt out of this thing, but maybe we take a step back and look at it just a little bit from a different mindset, that maybe there's a different way.
Yeah, and I think everyone in this room agrees that property taxes, assessments, and all depending on where you are, what county, what city, varies greatly. But the The problem with this is a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't. For Walton County, if you look from 20 to 24, you'll see, quite a big increase in 2020, 2021, where they were trying to get adjusted values where they were going to be, because the state was saying, you've got to do this or we're going to do something. And so they did. And so if you looked at our last year, it was 5% increase, I believe. So our county has done what they needed to do. But if you look at a lot of South Georgia counties, it's still an issue. They haven't done reassessments in 10 years. So that's where some of this comes from. The problem with this is a one-size-fits-all, and it doesn't. It takes away your local control to be able to do what you need to do for your school system. And I don't think anybody has any problem with saying there's some government waste in a lot of places. It's just you can't say a city, county, and a school district operate the same. And this is what this is trying to do.
Now, they had mentioned in the bill too that there was an option to add a sales tax to help come up with the shortfall.
That doesn't apply to school districts, it
Doesn't
only
apply to school
applies to
districts.
cities and counties.
Only cities and counties can opt into the 1%.
Yeah.
And that would have to be voted on to approve it, or?
Which I'm all for voting
Spreading
on
the
this
love.
stuff. Because, every time you want to come back and ask for more, you should have to ask. Now, that's the frustrating part about property taxes, that you're sitting back and it's just happening to you.
Yeah.
As values goes up, nobody's asking you to increase your taxes, it's just happening.
Right.
So,
And so that's why I say, I think the summary of this is, sure, I think definitely some property value issues, assessments, depending on where you are, what county you're in, definitely there's an issue. And that's what they were trying to address. But what it doesn't do is if you don't opt out, which is the scary part, you're in this until you've lost all of your local control over your tax revenue. And school systems get state money and tax revenue, that's it. Cities, counties, they have other methods. They have this option of a 1%, we have nothing else. And like Dr. Brewer said, in the early 2000s, the state, if they need to cut your budget, they call it an austerity cut. That's nothing but balancing their budget. And we have to make up for that somehow, or we have to fire teachers, I know we have an out-of-district population, but that still wouldn't have anything to do with our class, how many teachers we have, what services we can provide. If the state cuts, that's still an issue for us.
So please know that we're in the middle of our budgeting process for this year. You will hear from many of the teachers and many of our administrators that they're a little frustrated with us because we do say no. We don't just agree to everything that they come to us and say that they would like to have, which is one of the reasons that the teachers spend so much of their own money in order to be able to make their classrooms really nice and make them work. So we work really carefully to make sure that we are spending only the money that we need to have to provide great services for kids. We would love to be able to provide even better services for kids that we know would require us to have a tax rate that would not be tenable for our families and our communities. So what we want to commit to you is that it continues to be our goal to see that we can roll the millage rate back. That's what we're trying to do each year. Again, the assessing the property value, we don't do that. So we find out what the assessed values are, and then we work to see what does our mill rate need to be in order to make that work moving forward. We are looking forward to having additional hearings here, and those were the dates that we mentioned, and that information is also available on our website as well as on that one pager. We appreciate you all taking time to come out and to speak to us. Nicole's email and my email are right here. We'll be happy to answer your questions. We have spent time meeting with other school boards around the state, as well as meeting with attorneys, trying to make sure that we can wrap our heads around this, and also meeting here in Walton County with the other cities, the other school districts, and then also the county leaders as they try to make plans about how it is that they're going to respond to this option. So give us an email or give us a call if you'd like to have some continued conversation, and we hope you'll be able to make it to one or all three of the hearings. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.